The wind at 4,000 feet above the astronomy tower is cold enough to freeze the tears in your eyes before they can slide down your cheeks. But Elian Vance is not crying. He is doing math. Specifically, he is calculating the intercept trajectory of 3 killing curses aimed at his back versus the terminal velocity of a 20-year-old clean sweep 6 that has seen better days. Elian is a Ravenclaw, and he knows the numbers are bad. They are catastrophically bad. Below him, the castle is a grid of panic. Flashes of red and green light illuminate the stone courtyards like a strobe light in a nightmare. It is the darkest part of the war, the months where the ministry has fallen and Hogwarts is a prison. And tonight, the resistance has been caught in the open. A surprise aerial raid. Death Eaters on Nimbus 2001s are swooping down like hawks on field mice, picking off members of Dumbledore's army who were foolish enough to try and smuggle supplies in through the owlery. Elian was not supposed to be flying tonight. He is not a duelist. He is not brave. He is the boy who sits in the corner of the common room, smelling of solder and flux, the one people whisper about because he ruins good wands. He grips his broom handle so hard his knuckles are white, but under his right palm, embedded into the polished oak of the shaft, he feels it, a thin, spiraling heat. A copper and silver alloy wire, no thicker than a hair, wound tightly from the base of the handle up to the tip, plugged directly into the drilled-out core of his wand, which is duct-taped to his forearm. It looks ridiculous. It looks like a child's toy broken and glued back together. The Slytherins laughed when they saw it. Even Flitwick looked concerned. They called it Vance's suicide stick. They said channeling magical cores through a Brooms flight enchantments would blow his hands off. A jet of green light singes the bristles of his broom tail. The smell of burnt twigs fills his nose. He has 3 Death Eaters on his tail, closing the distance. They are faster, they are better trained, but they are flying standard. Elian is flying wired. If you want to know how this forgotten wizard turned a useless piece of copper wire and a broken broom into the only thing standing between the Death Eaters and a massacre, stay with me until the end of this story. 6 months ago, the Ravenclaw common room was quiet, save for the scratching of quills and the low hum of the wind outside. Elian Vance was at his usual table, surrounded by diagrams. He wasn't studying transfiguration or potions. He was studying lag. He had realized something that bothered him deeply about aerial combat. To cast a spell while flying, a wizard had to take one hand off the broom, point the wand, and cast. That split second, the transfer of balance, the loss of aerodynamic control, the time it took for the brain to switch from fly to fight, was fatal. It was a mechanical inefficiency. He looked at his wand. Dogwood, dragon heartstring, and then at his broom. Why were they separate? Why couldn't the flight interface be the casting interface? He started stripping the varnish off his broom that night. When his dorm mate, a prefect named Michael, saw him drilling a hole into the side of his wand, he nearly fainted. You don't drill wands. You don't mess with the geometry of a magical core. It's unstable. It's stupid. Elian didn't care. He found that a silver copper braid could conduct the somatic component of a spell if it was in direct contact with the wizard's skin. If he wrapped the wire around the broom handle, he could cast spells simply by squeezing the wood and thinking the incantation, using the broom itself as the focus. The first time he tested it, he set his bed curtains on fire. The second time, he managed to hover, but the feedback shock knocked him unconscious for an hour. Everyone told him to stop. They told him he was going to get expelled, or worse, leave himself magicless. But Elian kept soldering. He kept winding the wire, because he knew that if the war came to the skies, the old ways of flying wouldn't be enough. Back in the freezing air above the castle, the theory is over. The practical exam has begun. The lead Death Eater, a masked figure on a sleek black broom, is gaining. Elian can hear the screaming whine of the superior broomstick. He knows he can't outrun them in a straight line. The clean sweep shakes violently as it hits maximum speed, the wood groaning under the stress. Elian's heart hammers against his ribs. He needs to turn. A standard hard banking turn on a broom requires you to lean your entire body weight and pull up on the handle. It takes 2 seconds. Elian doesn't have 2 seconds. He squeezes the copper wire under his right palm. He doesn't reach for his wand. He doesn't shout. He just thinks, "Depulso." Usually, the banishing charm pushes an object away, but Elian isn't casting it at an enemy. He channels the magic through the wire, into the broom's tail, blasting the air behind him. The reaction is instantaneous. It's not a turn, it's a violent, physics-defying jerk. The broom snaps 90 degrees to the left without losing momentum, moving like a chess piece sliding across a board. The Death Eater behind him doesn't have time to react. He shoots past the spot where Elian just was, his killing curse hitting nothing but empty cloud. Elian hears the shout of confusion as the enemy formation breaks. It worked. The conduction held. But the feedback burns Elian's palm, a sharp sting like grabbing a hot kettle. The wire is heating up. It wasn't designed for this much power. He dives, plummeting toward the viaduct. He can see Ginny Weasley and a few others pinned down behind a stone gargoyle, red sparks chipping away at their cover. 2 more Death Eaters are circling them like vultures, waiting for a clear shot. Elian knows he has to draw them off. He has to be the easier target. He pulls out of the dive just above the heads of the students, the wind of his passing blowing their hair back. He squeezes the handle again, Lumos Maxima. The tip of his broom, not a wand, the broom itself, erupts with a blinding flash of white light, like a magnesium flare. The Death Eaters circling the gargoyle are blinded instantly, their brooms wobbling as they shield their eyes. "Over here, you cowards!" Elian screams, his voice cracking. It's the first thing he's said aloud all night. It works too well. The 2 blinded Death Eaters recover and join the 3 chasing him. Now there are 5 dark streaks against the moonlight, all converging on one battered clean sweep. This was the mistake. He has drawn too much fire. He calculates the odds again. Survival probability is dropping below single digits. He feels a curse clip his shoulder, a stinging hex that numbs his left arm. He almost loses his grip. The broom lurches. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts is already touching your heart, and you'd like to help keep these stories alive, you can support the channel by clicking the thanks button below the video. Every little bit helps me continue bringing you more hidden tales of courage and magic. Elian regains control, but his left arm is dead weight. He can only steer with his right, the hand on the wire. The heat from the copper is becoming unbearable now, searing his skin. The smell of burning flesh mixes with the ozone. He is flying toward the Great Lake now, hoping the open water will give him room to maneuver. But the Death Eaters are smart. They spread out, forming a net. Too high, too low, one trailing directly behind. They are herding him. They are pushing him toward the water surface where he'll have no room to dive. He can see the leader raising his wand. The tip glows green. This is it. Elian looks at the wire. It's glowing dull red. If he pushes any more magic through it, the core might shatter. The broom might explode. But he has no choice. He remembers the ridicule in the common room. It's stupid, Vance. It's suicide. Maybe they were right. But stupid is the only weapon he has left. He waits. He waits until he can see the whites of the eyes behind the mask of the trailing Death Eater. He waits until the water of the lake is rushing by 10 feet below his toes. Now. Elian squeezes the handle with every ounce of strength he has left and channels a spell he found in a dusty book on structural engineering. Glacius. But not a stream of ice. He dumps his entire magical reserve into the broom's wake. The wire flashes white-hot and disintegrates. The wood of the handle cracks, but behind him the air itself freezes. The moisture in the heavy lake air instantly crystallizes into a solid, jagged wall of ice, suspended for just a second in the chaotic wake of his flight. It is an air mine, a physical barrier appearing out of thin air. The trailing Death Eater slams into the ice wall at 70 miles per hour. The sound is sickening, a crunch of wood and bone that echoes across the water. The impact sends shards of ice flying like shrapnel, tearing through the formation of the other 4 pursuers. One broom has its tail sheared off. Another Death Eater takes a chunk of ice to the mask and spirals into the black water. The formation collapses. The hunters become the hunted, scrambling to regain control in the debris field Elian just created. Elian doesn't see them fall. The backlash of the spell blew the enchantment off his own broom. The clean sweep dies instantly, turning back into a mundane collection of twigs and wood. He hits the water hard, skipping once like a stone before sinking into the freezing darkness of the Black Lake. The cold is shocking. It fills his lungs. He thrashes, his numb arm useless, the weight of his soaking robes dragging him down. He sees the moonlight fading above him. He thinks about his math. He calculated the flight, but he forgot to calculate the landing. Then a hand grabs his collar. He is hauled up, coughing and retching, onto the muddy bank of the lake. He looks up, vision blurry, to see the face of Neville Longbottom, bloody and soot-stained. Behind Neville, the sky is clearing. The Death Eaters have retreated, their air superiority broken by the chaos over the lake. Elian looks down at his hand. His right palm is a ruin of blisters and burn marks. The pattern of the wire is branded into his skin, a spiral scar that will never fade. His wand is cracked down the middle, useless. The broom is gone. That was, Neville breathes, looking out at the floating debris on the lake. I've never seen flying like that. What spell was that? What did you do? Elian tries to speak, but his throat is raw. He just looks at his shaking hand. He wants to explain the conduction velocity, the copper alloy, the reduction of somatic lag. He wants to explain that it wasn't talent, it was engineering. It was just a wire. I just tinkered with it, Elian whispers. The next day, there is no grand assembly for Elian Vance. The war is too big, and the losses are too heavy for one dog fight to change the tide of history. He spends 3 days in the hospital wing, growing new skin on his hand. Madame Pomfrey scolds him for handling dangerous artifacts. The other Ravenclaws look at him differently, though. When he returns to the common room, there is no laughter. They see the scar on his hand. They saw the ice wall shatter a Death Eater formation. They don't ask him to make them one. They know, instinctively, that the suicide stick only works if you are desperate enough to burn yourself to make it happen. Elian never flies combat again. He spends the rest of the war on the ground, fixing radios and setting perimeter wards. But the story travels. It passes from the Gryffindor chasers to the Hufflepuff beaters. It becomes a ghost story among the enemy. The Death Eaters learn to be wary of lone students on broken brooms. They learn that sometimes the person you should fear the most isn't the aura with the badge, but the quiet kid with a soldering iron and nothing left to lose. If this forgotten legend of Hogwarts touched your heart, tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Elian's place? Would you have trusted the wire? Like the video, share it with another Harry Potter fan, and subscribe to hear more hidden stories of courage, magic, and impossible odds. Sometimes the smartest magic looks exactly like a mistake until it saves your life.